And I don't have a single unhappy person that I've worked with in 15 years. And I have long relationships in my space. I have long relationships in the industry. I have long relationships with people that I've worked with in different ways.
I can appreciate the fact that just by sticking around and continuing to develop your relationship equity with people, and you can argue whether you do it in a transactional way or not, but it probably pays better long term if you do it in a non-transactional way where people don't feel like you're only talking to them when you need something. Like, you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
The guy who's like, when you call people, they'd be like, you know, this guy again. I know what he wants. He wants me to put 500 people on the webinar. I know what he wants. Yeah. So what fascinates me is just how many deals are done in probably in any industry between people just because people like each other, not even because they have not even because like their transaction makes perfect sense. Oftentimes, people will actually say no to transactions that make ideal sense. Things like that, they're just on paper be like, this is definitely going to add $1 million to you over the course of the next 5 years. People will still pass on it, but because their relationship isn't there. And I didn't get that for years. For years, I approached it as strictly, it's all about the money. Like, I figured if I'm stepping into the game because I want to make money, so whoever I'm JVing with or working with in some capacity, they should have that same desire. But what I've completely ignored is the people I ended up working with long term were the ones that we just liked each other, right? And I had this thing come up a couple of months ago, actually, where a guy that I know in the industry with whom, every now and again we'll JV, but it's not like super tight where we would do it every 3 months or anything. All of a sudden, he brings a team member. Like, he just hires somebody to work with him that turns out to be a guy that I know from like 10 years ago. That 10 years ago, he was like doing his own thing and we were like going back and forth a lot. We were brainstorming and stuff like that. All of a sudden, he's like on his team. So what that leads to is like, oh, there's definitely a JV here, and these JVs don't even feel like, they don't feel forced and they don't feel like something you need to work on. It's just something that you end up kind of flowing naturally towards because you're like, well, we like each other. They can bring value. I can bring value. I see how this can make sense. And then you're like, you don't even have to hard sell it. You'd be like, hey, what do you think about doing this? It's like, yeah, let's do it. And then, there's a certain type of joint ventures that I would set up with people and then it takes us months to carry out. You know how like it has to go on the calendar and we have to like go create something, whatever. But these JVs typically be like, you want to do something? It's like, yeah, I got an opening week after next. And it just happens. Like, you don't plan for it. You don't wait for it to happen. It's just kind of from today to tomorrow. It's like, bam, you got like a 6-figure joint venture just appear on your radar. And that's really powerful. And that trickles back to like the seeds you planted years and years and years ago. And I honestly didn't recognize that. For many, many years, I had no idea. And it was a frustrating experience for me trying to figure out ways to hit people up and kind of, even at seminars, I would be afraid to approach them because I felt that, oh, they're not going to work with me, But I realized it's not about that like at all. It's about just connection. It's about just almost like hanging out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's just being in each other's presence and feeling each other's energy. And if you like the energy, the joint venture kind of naturally sprouts from there.
Well, it comes from abundance, right? So if you the mindset of abundance, you have the mindset of doing good for other people, and you find the people who relate to you in that, things just come. And you just mentioned, like, you ran into a JV who hired somebody from 10 years ago. Well, the markets that we live in are small. The online marketing world, I work heavily in the real estate investing world. A lot of the markets that we do in the entrepreneurial space are small. You're going to run into people again and again, and you create the relationships, and you never know what kind of relationship is going to come from that. We had this conversation because of somebody who I said some great words to 15 years ago. And he brought up my name again 15 years later to you, who we had you and I had a prior relationship with some JVs that we did, but we didn't have this conversation.
Yeah.
You never know. I actually hadn't talked to that person that mentioned you to me in at least 4 years. Funny enough. So it's, and that's just, I've done very well at making sure I'm taking care of the people that I interact with. I never try to take too much. I always have um, that abundance mentality. And if I say something and I don't deliver on it, and I've done that, right? I've not delivered on promises sometimes. I admit that, but I've done everything I can possibly humanly do to over deliver on a promise I've missed. And so I say that heavily in my space. I work heavily in the real estate investing space. I've been in that space for 15 years. Whenever I talk to somebody, I say, listen, my relationship, my reputation and what we do as a relationship is way important than the transactional value that we're delivering in this one instance, right? If I have a bad, if I deliver a bad product in this, whether it's a JV or whether it's marketing services or advice or whatever it may be, that's going to reflect poorly on my reputation that I've spent 15 years of my life building. And I don't want that. So either we're going to find a way to win together. And sometimes I can't deliver exactly what I promise. I'm going to over deliver on the reconciliation of that. And, I don't have a single unhappy person that I've worked with in 15 years because of that. And I have long relationships in my space. I have long relationships in the industry. I have long relationships with people that I've worked with in different ways. And to me, that's more important than anything else. Right. And that served me very, very well. And I look at the time that I really had to hustle in my early years of building a business. And, we all go through that time period. We all go through that sort of that rookie period of trying to figure things out. And I remember it very, very dearly and very, very closely. But there's just certain mindset shifts as you make along that way to position yourself for the next 10 years, the next 20 years. I was interviewing a new copywriter just this morning. And I said, hey, I've been writing copy for 15 years. And I was like, man, I would love to get to that point in my career. Like I was hiring him for my team. And even people on my team, I've hired a lot of people that have worked in our company. Now I'm at my home office now, but we have 6,000 square feet just down the road. We're building our team back up from our crash of business. But I look at everybody I've ever worked with, and I always say this to when I'm hiring them is, listen, I don't know where we're going to be together in 5 years, but my goal is that you leave here with the ability to grow and have an amazing experience to be better off in our time spent. Like I would love to work together with you for as long as you want to, but if you leave and do your own thing or do whatever you want to do, I want this time to be that time that has made that impact on your career. And I'm fortunate to say there's several people that have gone through sort of either working with us or working with me as a vendor or contractor that have gone on to really great things in our space and in adjacent spaces because of the time that we've spent together. And that's just from me learning this process through my own journey. And I remember how it was to hustle and grind. And I remember how closely it was to ask for my first, go from $1,000 a sales letter to $8,000 a sales letter on just for masking and that whole process and everything I can do to get somebody to bypass those steps and stand on the lessons that I've learned in that process.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think the more successful you've become, the more you had to say no to opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard this the other day. It's you have to be willing to say no to good opportunities to focus on the great ones. And you have to be willing to give back and surround yourself with good people and great people to keep pushing yourself up and not keep getting held back by your own limitations, your own fears, your own doubts, and expressing that on other people as well.